And now I'm going to go on Facebook Live once I figure out how to do it again. Okay, and I'm going to go on Facebook Live. Hello, everybody that's listening to this and just waiting for me to get stuff together. Come on.
Ooh, it's bright.
Play your name, Shinsei. I've done it before. I'm going to go right now. So it is now live.
Woohoo.
Go ahead.
Hello, I'm here to talk to you about leadership in Amtgard and especially in localities. Who the heck am I, right? I am Shinsei out of 13 Roads. My home park is Phoenix Tiers. My real name is Travis Nelson. I'm 32 years old. I've been playing Amtgard since 2004. There's a whole bunch of names there. Current Prince of 13 Roads. Favorite color is red. This is only relevant because I will be highlighting opinions in it. My favorite kit is Dual Short Swords, which is not relevant. My first park was Forsaken Lakes, which is now a defunct park. I served in just about every position there but champion. When I graduated high school, I went to Peoria, Illinois, and helped start Cursed Prairie on a contract for Bloomington, Illinois. Do the math there. I was the sheriff. Some stuff happened. I took a hiatus. There were setbacks. I moved back to Galesburg. I came back to Amtgard using a sponsored fighter practice from that Peoria park that had a contract in Bloomington. And then I got a promotion in my real life job and I moved back to Cursed Prairie. And I was voted back to Monarch. The park fell apart as people moved, grew up, went to college. These things happen. Some sad stuff happened in my life, which I have since dealt with. I was diagnosed with depression much later on. I kind of had an inkling that I knew what was going on with that as I was younger, but I was stubborn. Get help. Do the help thing. It'll make your life better. It'll make your life easier. If you're in that position. So once again, back to Galesburg. Last one on me, I promise. I went to college. I got my associate's degree and pursued my bachelor's degree at Western Illinois University in Macomb, Illinois. More sad stuff happened, and I decided I was going to start a park again. The long and the short of it is I lost a very good friend, and I lost a lot of opportunities to see them because I wasn't going to events. I wasn't doing what I loved. I was straight nose to grindstone on school, and that was all I was doing. So I started that park as kind of a monument, really feeling the fire lit under me. And day one, I had 8 sign-ins, which I think is not too bad for a brand new park in the middle of nowhere. That's really got no scene, right? I graduated in 2019 with my bachelor's in psychology. And I moved to Phoenix Tiers. I moved to Springfield, Illinois. Most of that time, from about 2004 to it was October when we were officially ratified. We've been pursuing a principality in Illinois, and now we've got it. And so now I'm here. So you can imagine that I've dealt with some things and I've experienced a lot of Amtgard in my life over 16 years and a lot of strange situations that I really wasn't prepared for. I have failed to lead adequately more times than most people have attempted to lead. And I think that's an important point. We were talking about that prior to hitting the record button. So I want to address it. Failure is okay. It happens. The last time I did this talk, that point came up and it raised a lot of eyebrows and people were like, it sounds like you're bragging about failing. And I was like, absolutely, I'm bragging about failing. There are situations where you will do everything right. There's a great Jean-Luc Picard quote from Star Trek: The Next Generation that is something along the lines of, you can do everything right and still fail. That is not weakness, that is being human. And I agree entirely. I don't necessarily think I did anything wrong in those situations. I don't think I did necessarily anything wrong in any of the parks that I've been in, but people have grown, people have flourished. And that might have been because of my leadership. They may have left local Amp Guard because they got confidence, right? And they got the confidence to go pursue something that they loved. So they moved across the country to California from Galesburg, Illinois, right after high school and went to college. Good for them. Great. That's not a failure. That's passing on leadership and passing on the good things that come with it.
I know that person.
She was the first one that came to mind. All right. So it's difficult to talk about leadership without structure. One of the main goals of leadership is typically structure. So read your Corpora. Just read your Corpora. Like it is laid out. Corpora, I assume, is like a bastardization of Latin for corpus, which is body. So that is the body of law, or the body of action that we use to govern ourselves and make sure that everything is running smoothly. All of our park positions roughly translate to standard club. I believe it's like the American clubs system. But these are the positions that most orgs use. Your monarch is your president. Your regent is your VP. Your prime minister is your treasurer / secretary. Your champion's in charge of safety, which you could be like a safety officer maybe. And your GMR is just all of our rule stuff. That's it. Don't overthink them. Don't overcomplicate them just because they're Amp Guard. That's all these positions are, and that's all these positions are there to do, is to serve those same functions. At no level do these positions grant special powers that aren't written somewhere, rulebook or corpora typically, and only use titles to do what permission is given. So like, don't go crazy and decide that you don't like somebody's garb, and since you're monarch, you're going to tell them that they have to change it. They have to make all new garb. It's a pretty awful way to like retain people, just as an example. Monarchs should be in charge of fun. That said, they do have some jobs that are not fun. Speaking to authorities, they're supposed to be the person that goes and talks to the police if they show up and are like, what are you guys doing here in the park? They set a calendar of events. So that is organizing the fun and picking what dates and times those things are happening. Make sure battle games happen. Make sure, everything goes off without a hitch. And we'll get to that. It's a little bit later. Communicate as the eventual voice of the park. So that's going to be like talking to kingdom monarchs. That's going to be like talking to organizations that maybe want to work with you. That sort of deal. They're the masters of ceremonies. So they run all things, and they run court and awards and yada yada. They're also in charge of bands, which is a rough topic for a lot of people. But it's a responsibility. It's your responsibility as a leader to make sure that Amp Guard is a safe place to have fun for everyone that is willing to be peaceable and honest. And yeah, you're there to have fun. I'm here to have fun. We're all here to have fun. People who are here to have fun at other people's expense, let's consider some bands every once in a while. So my first opinion piece: pick up dropped balls. This is an important piece for monarchs. If something falls through, you should be the person with the backup plan. If feast falls through, have something. Like, if that's take some money out of your wallet and buy pizzas for the park and that's your feast, cool. That's a ball that could have dropped, but your regent maybe burnt the ham or whatever. Pick it up and roll with it. You just have to be flexible. And recruitment. Recruitment is a piece that is not put into anybody's corpora. I really don't think there's nobody that's specifically in charge of it, and it's really our duty as a club, as every member of the club, to kind of be recruiting. But as a monarch, you should really focus those efforts. You should be looking for like conventions in your town, or talking to the guy at the comic shop and seeing if there's something that you can do in collaboration with them. I designed business cards when I was monarch of Scholar Stronghold. Yeah, they got a little blurb about Amtgard on the back, the dates, the times, meeting places, things like that. I went on publisher, like Microsoft Publisher. Wasn't anything special. They're super easy to make. They are relatively cheap to print. I think $20 got me like 200 of them or something like that. Just keep an eye out for places that print, like your local Kinko's, Staples, Office Max, places like that. Really easy to do, and I think business cards are more effective than, say, posting flyers. But that's another like class for another time. Regents are in charge of art, so you're not like holding people's paintbrushes, right? You're not telling them what to make or anything like that. Remember, monarch duties are on the shoulders of regents if the monarch is absent or for whatever reason indisposed. They're the vice president. That's the job of a vice president in pretty much every club. The next big thing is to foster arts and sciences, which is a really nebulous statement. But I think COVID has done a great job of getting us to focus in on the region and take away from our battle game culture just a little bit. We're just taking a vacation from that, and we're really seeing all of these classes, like the Rising Winds virtual classroom posted hours and hours of videos on how to do stuff for Amtgard. Go check those out. It's a Facebook group that you can just pop in and they'll probably accept you, and you can just start cruising videos on whatever topics are there. Also in charge of feasts. Back to fostering for just 1 second. I forgot. You should also do your damnedest to find teachers and teach classes. And sometimes that means that you're going to find classes that not everyone is interested in. And sometimes it might just be you and the teacher. And you kind of have to gracefully accept that like people aren't interested in that, which sucks. People take time out to teach classes. Thank you for coming to my class, by the way. Just do your best and be flexible. It's not the end of the world if nobody comes. It's great if people do, but it's not the end of the world. Feasts and organizing them. That's a whole series of classes in and of itself. I can't teach you how to do that in this class, but you should have an eye on it. Arts and science tournaments, whether that's your kingdom running quals, mine doesn't. Dragon Master, and then showcases are another big thing that's starting to emerge thanks to Alona and some other people throughout Amtgard. It's a way to foster competition when you're talking about Dragon Master. It is another thing to foster an open air to talk about art with a showcase. You're just presenting what you've done, and you're not necessarily getting a score for it. You're not necessarily getting feedback for it. You're just standing there and talking about the thing that you made with people who wander up with the showcase. And I think that's a really good environment that we should do more of across Amtgard. Running ANS nights. Just pick a day of the week and just find a space. At one point, I was at a park that was doing them in the back room of a comic shop. And that was pretty cool. They were pretty cool about that. And we got, nerds all around us playing Magic or whatever. And then there we are just making bats or sewing tunics or whatever we were doing. It's another way to be visible to people who maybe necessarily wouldn't see you out at the park. Some people run them right out of their own house, which if you got the space, that's great. And sometimes we can be a little more ourselves. We'll put it that way. Prime ministers manage records. Upkeep records using the Ork. I think Ork is pretty much standard at this point. Everybody pretty much gets an Ork page when they sign a contract with AI. And collecting dues. With collecting dues, make sure you're issuing receipts. Like, receipt books are super cheap at the dollar store. Just go get a receipt book, and just every time somebody pays dues, write it in. Make sure that you know when they paid it, when it's active for, when it ends, and the next person will too, because they'll have your receipt book. Maintain a ledger, maintain incoming and outgoing receipts. Just keep track of all of that money, because you don't want to be on the hook. You don't want to catch a ban because $5 was missing, somebody didn't get dues paid, whatever. And again, this is somebody that is also in charge of bans. So champions help with fun. So champions and monarchs should be working together to make sure that Amtgard is fun. And part of that is making sure that our weapons are safe. And part of that is running battle games. Part of that is making sure that if somebody, like, say, lost their cell phone at the park, and you found it on a park bench, that it gets back to them. They're not worrying about, their livelihood. You've got their phone. You hopefully know how to contact them and get it to them. They run if your kingdom runs quals, typically the champion also runs the weapon, or the, what do you call it? War skills tournament. Manage battle game gear. This is one that's not written into Corporas. Again, this is my opinion, but it's super easy and super cheap to get a hold of cones, ball pit balls, and to make your own flags for Capture the Flag or some other such game. Cones and ball pit balls are cheap, less than $10 for 50, I think. And yeah, there's a number of ways that you can do them. Whether you're using them for life count, or they are collected objects for a battle game, or let your imagination run wild and just put something out there and play it. Some of my favorite park days are days where we did not have a plan because the absent monarch or whatever, and we just decided, this is what we're going to do. This is the game that we're going to play, and we made it up on the spot. Having that stuff around makes it much more clear what's going on. Because it's one thing to maintain a count. It's another thing to take a ball pit ball out of a laundry basket and move it to another laundry basket. And you can vary the speed. You can do that while defending. It adds interesting aspects to games. And again, it's not super expensive. GMRs settle rules disputes. They reeve games and tourneys as needed, administer Reeves tests, bans. They are another facilitator of fun. They are not there to miser the rules over anyone or tell them that, they don't know the rules, so they need to not be playing. Their job is to make sure that things are fair and equal as they can be. This is a lot for new parks, in my opinion. So if you're day one, your first 6 months, and you've got 5 people at your park, you're all officers. And that can be a lot for people. Some people don't want to step into leadership roles, and honestly, a lot of condensing can be done. And some people will dispute this, but I think Monarch and Champion can be crushed together. And I think Prime Minister and Regent can be crushed together. just out of necessity. Like if you are just in dire straits for people and you want to keep this thing organized, you just pass these responsibilities to these other officers. You make sure the work still gets done. What's it matter who's sitting in the seats? So long as the monarch doesn't have the money. I don't recommend the monarchs having money. It just gets into a weird place. And if you look at a lot of organizations, they really tend to split executive function of like presidency from the money, like actually handling of money. Yeah, you can run 4 positions. You can run down to 2 or 3 if you really try hard. This is all here in PowerPoint. So if you want to go back, I left the link in the chat. Above your park and beyond your park, it all breaks down really easy. Most of you probably know this, but you've got, in most kingdoms across Amtgard, you have, well, a shire, a barony, a duchy, and then you might maybe be a part of a principality, and you might or might not be a part of a kingdom. I'm going to bet most of the people here are part of a kingdom. If you're not, you're a freehold. That's how a lot of people start Amtgard, is starting their own park, or joining in at ground level as a new park is forming. If you are in a freehold and you have difficulties, you should not hesitate to go to your nearest kingdom or the kingdom that you were thinking about joining, find their leadership and talk to them. Even if it's just a, hey, how you doing? I mean, if you've got a particular problem that needs handling, you can always ask them for advice. Advice is good. We like advice. It's one thing to approach a situation and a problem on your own, and you will probably do okay at it. But if you have seasoned veterans, if you have people who can get in the middle of a conflict and break it up and deal with it as an outside party, because if your park falls apart, that kingdom probably isn't going to bat an eye. That kingdom's still going to run. If your park stays together and joins that kingdom, that's great. So their net is typically positive, and most are willing to help. And it's kind of your job in those higher positions, like principalities and kingdoms, to kind of eyeball your turf. I'm pretty protective of Illinois, and there have been situations that have arose in Illinois that were very contentious. And I really had to stop and take a breath, talk to my monarch in Tal'Dorei, talk to, the Nine Blades, talk to Rising Winds, talk to Polaris, talk to whoever's around, whoever will listen, and get more voices in my head. And that helps. And it also helps if your subordinates, I use that word really loosely. I don't know that we're all members of the same club. We're all peers to a certain degree. If you're a monarch and your regent calls you on something, listen to them. Listen to their advice. Listen to where they're coming from, and take their advice into account, because like you're supposed to be filling these positions together and working as a unit to make sure that fun is had. Right? Fun is always the end goal. That's what it always comes back to. This is really specific for Tal'Dorei. But if you're in a kingdom, you probably have a Circle of Monarchs meeting or two that happen every reign. They're sat by the monarchs of the parks across the kingdom and makes decisions for the kingdom associated to membership within the kingdom. They're sort of a Senate, but they're way less powerful. And if you look across Amtgard, the amount of power that the Circle of Monarchs have varies widely. If you are in a kingdom monarch position, you should be in like a group chat or a Facebook group or something, and this should be a place where you guys are talking about drama or issues that your park is having with logistics, like where are we holding park, just kind of having that meeting of the minds and like getting more advice, getting more seasoned opinions, and getting those outside views again. The Taldegor board of directors is very different than most of the other board of directors across Amtgard, from what I can tell. We are very much a for-profit business, sort of. We play Amtgard, and the money that we make from events goes into the pockets of the board of directors. Not like the individual directors, but like a single bank account that we can then spend out of. But the populace doesn't get to vote on what we spend that money on or where we spend it. That is solely the board decision. So we decide if we're going to use a site and we're going to pay it. It's worked out well in the past, and if you have questions about that specifically, you can always shoot me a message in private. I'll have information on how to do that later. But it's business. I mean, it has its own president, vice president, treasurer, secretary, chairs, and it oversees all of the game functions from a real life perspective. That is legally, that is monetarily. You know, if somebody does something heinous and a ban needs to happen, it is one thing to have the monarch and the prime minister lodge a ban, but if the monarch is the one that did the heinous thing and doesn't want to bring that ban up on himself, our board steps in. We're looking at having a similar structure for 13 roads as we move forward towards the kingdom. That was a lot. It was a lot for me. I'm kind of shaky and nervous because I usually don't do classes for people that I don't know. I like to have those to just take a breath, take it easy for a second. All right, so getting involved with leadership. Now you know all that stuff. Where do you start? I recommend locally. Start at your local park. It doesn't matter the size. Really, because the job doesn't change beyond the number of people that you're running battle games for. There might be more opportunities for drama, but there's probably just about the same amount. Most people's mileage with Amtgard is they come to park day, they play the games, they go home. There are outliers to that. There are people that really feel that they live Amtgard, which is okay, so long as that isn't disrupting other people's tranquility. Don't let a lack of experience hold you back. Everyone starts somewhere. And if that means that you're starting as a duke, them's the breaks. I mean, unless you want to drive 15 minutes to a half hour and start your own park outside of that, which is good for Amtgard and it grows the game. But there are lessons that you can learn from being a duke. There are lessons that you can learn from being a baron, especially if you are wanting to pursue ladder awards. I recommend asking to shadow current, it says members, I mean officers, and look at what they're doing and just listen in. A lot of times it's just enough to be able to vent for a monarch that will allow them to say, yes, you can shadow me. It's just awareness of what's going on and seeing it as it happens. There are lots of teachable skills in leadership, including social skills and being able to talk in front of a large group of people. You know, there are many things that are learnable. There is no such thing as a talent. You learn it somewhere, you know. You're not just born good at everything, right? Read your Corpora, know the insides and outs of it. Just everything. Just as much as you can. And once you think you know it, read it again. TD just ran into an incident where we didn't include the clause that says the if people declare, but nobody's like qualled, that it's just a runoff as normal. And that led to some trouble. It's since been dealt with, and we're now putting that onto our docket. And TD's over 10 years old now. We went 10 years without catching that. So read it, know it, find the holes. Generally leading, you should be a representative for the people that elected you and the people that voted against you. You're being trusted with helming wherever your chapter is going, whether that's your local or your kingdom or your principality or whatever. So act like it. It's pretty matter of fact for me. And that's probably because I was pushed into leadership of a park that was really just a bunch of ragtag teenagers. I very quickly was like, okay, I need to listen to these people if I want to get anywhere. I need to be diplomatic and come at things from both sides and make sure that everybody's as happy as I can make them. Don't let your position go to your head. It only lasts 6 months. The next guy can basically undo anything that you did. Always a good thing to keep in mind. Yes, I am the Prince of 13 Roads. Yes, I am a squire. Those titles really don't mean anything. I get banned the same way everybody else gets banned. I pay my dues. We have a lot of equal standing in our game, and I think that's good. Amp Guard is a club like any other, and we will see success the more we lean towards a general social club perspective. It doesn't mean that we have to like do hors d'oeuvres and champagne and brunch and like, but we should observe recruiting tactics that other groups are using, especially other groups that are like ours, like Belogarth, like Nero. There's a ton of LARPs out there. Why pick Amtgard? That's something important to think about when you're thinking about recruiting. And ask questions before you decide anything. If you are asking questions, you are thinking critically about the problem as well as the solution. This bit I added in for COVID. You will face challenges you did not anticipate. Nobody saw this coming. And it's raised a lot of questions about how our game functions, and what our culture looks like and how we do events, and like some of those answers are really good, and it's sounding like there's going to be more inclusivity for those who are less able, because we've perfected this. We've done all of these classes online now, and we can shift from the in-person thing to doing online, to doing recordings. People are getting good at Zoom. People are getting good at Discord, Twitch. Like there's a lot of platforms and there's a lot of ways to use them. And that means more growth for Amtgard, in my opinion. There's a lot of ways to lead in Amtgard when you're talking about being in the monarchy or in a fighting company, a household. Just being the guy that's like, hey, we need somebody to do scullery work, and you're the first one to stand up. Just do something. like there's been some discussions about how leaders in Amtgard are basically the people that are willing to do the job and just do it, even if it's not an amazing job, even if it's not a great job. If it's just an okay job, that is better than all the people who are not doing that job, who are not standing up, who are not helping. I would love to have help. There are things that I would love to have help with, especially on event sites. It is the greatest feeling in the world to be like, oh, thank goodness that battle game is over, and have somebody that is there with a sandwich. Like like it is a godsend, I swear. I'm going to go ahead and open it up to questions. On the left, though, you will see all of my social media stuff. I hang out on TikTok and do Vampire the Masquerade, D&D, and Amp stuff. I started doing some Vampire the Masquerade stuff on YouTube. I play on Twitch about twice a week. So if you want to come out, hang out, ask me questions, bug me on Twitter, Facebook, whatever, it's all there. And you can always come and talk to me about Amp. I will try my best to be in a good mood. And hopefully the subjects will be good as well. But I'm willing to approach rough subjects too. So, questions?
If you want, I can stop recording so that the questions don't get on recording, and I'll end Facebook Live as well.
Cool. Yeah, let's do that.
All right, so stop recording.